Nickelodeon has once again been on a ho-hum slump over the past decade. From their mediocre live-action shows, shady practices, and continuous path of not taking any risks. It's at the point that people have flat out gave up on this once pristine #1 kids network. But it seems that Nickelodeon has thrown a bone to us, with their recent announcement of a comic book adaptation of one of their most memorable Nicktoons of the 2000s, the sci-fi dark comedy Invader Zim created by Jonan Vasquez. And the peasants rejoice! With the popularity of comic books booming thanks to Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Valiant, and so much more, I think that Nickelodeon can adapt more of their animated shows in comic book form. Unfortunately, when it comes to comic books, I'm pretty below average. So, that's why I decided to bring in a comic book expert into this countdown. Ladies and gentlemen, you might remember her from the Alex Mack podcast. Please welcome back Comic Uno.
Hey Patricia, thanks for having me on.
And with introductions out of the way, let us start the top 10 Nicktoons that need comic book adaptations. Let's get started. Coming in at number 10 is one of the numerous animated shows in Nickelodeon done by Klasky Csupo. Around the 90s, Klasky Csupo was one of the most influential animated companies of all time, producing multiple cartoons that would later on become classics. But then they released a mediocre show from time to time, especially during their later downfall in popularity around the 2000s when they were overshadowed by their contemporaries. In my opinion, the worst Klasky Csupo Nicktoon was The Wild Thornberrys. The show was about a young girl named Eliza Thornberry who, alongside with her parents, Nigel and Marianne, her older sister Debbie, her chimpanzee companion Darwin, and a wild jungle boy they named Donnie, they travel all over the world filming a nature show. Eliza has the ability to talk to animals, a la Dr. Dolittle, and she would communicate with them to either help them with their problems or learn more about them. This is a very interesting concept that I'm surprised hasn't been done since. However, there are some major problems. My issues with The Wild Thornberrys is that the show can be very boring at times. It's very slow-paced, the characters are not very interesting nor fully developed, the villains, such as Kip and Biederman, are a complete joke, and Eliza can be very cocky at times with her powers, either putting the animals or her family in more dangerous situations than what they originally were at. Seriously, I think that the only reason why people still remember this show, not only because of nostalgia, but because of the awesomeness that is Nigel Thornberry voiced by Tim Curry. I swear, he has been in so many memes that it gives the 1960s Spider-Man cartoon a run for its money.
That was smashing!
But if I hate this show so much, then why is it on this list, you may wonder? Well, the reason why is because I think there's some good ideas here. The world traveling and the interactions with the animals are really cool. Unfortunately, when it came to character additions and episodes that didn't focus on the animals or the adventure, it kind of fell completely flat. If this Nicktoon were to be adapted in comic book form, it needs a complete reboot. There were huge influences from a lot of the nature shows that came out during the late 90s, especially Crocodile Hunter. Nigel Thornberry definitely seems to take his inspirations from Steve Irwin. But since then, there have been a lot more influential documentaries and nature shows, including the groundbreaking nature miniseries Planet Earth. The characters need to be tweaked to be a lot more interesting, the pace has to be a lot more faster, and the plot needs to be a bit more story-driven. Let's be honest, the show is a little bit dated.
Not Shane-G! Every girl on Earth is like totally in love with him. Except me, of course.
Yes, my opinion on a Wild Thornberrys comic book. I really enjoyed Wild Thornberrys as a cartoon. I grew up with it. It was a lot of fun seeing Liza getting all those shenanigans because she could talk to animals. But if there was a comic book, something I would really like to see is the events after the Wild Thornberrys movie. I always thought it was more interesting when Debbie knew that Eliza could talk to animals because it made that sister dynamic really fun. And I think they could totally flesh out in a comic book. And then, of course, the parents not know that she could talk to animals because that leaves for some secrets in the comic. And yeah, it would be a cool kind of kid comic. I would say keep it as a kid comic that kids and people who grew up with the show can enjoy it. Now, someone I would really like to see write the Wild Thornberrys is Ryan North, who works on some of the Adventure Time comics for Boom Studios, and I think that would be a cool fit for Wild Thornberrys.
Coming in at number 9 is another Klasky Csupo Nicktoon that you've heard me talk about a million times. The most underrated Nicktoon of all time, as told by Ginger. Say what you want about the animation. Say what you want about the fact that it's too dramatic or too serious. As Told by Ginger was truly a groundbreaking cartoon for Nickelodeon that doesn't get the credit that it deserves. It was the first Nicktoon that did story arcs, character development, and even had different clothes in almost every episode. As Told by Ginger was about the everyday life of Ginger Foutley, showcasing her friends, family, and her experiences in middle and high school. The show focused on a lot of serious moments, everything from divorce.
Got a letter from Dad.
Seriously? What'd he say?
I didn't open it.
Probably for the best. Want me to trash it?
I didn't open it yet, Darren, but I am going to open it. He's my dad, okay?
Death.
About how sometimes your family can make you really mad or feel bad and make it hard to see the good things about them. But then one day, they're gone, and all you have left are the memories. And you see all those good things in a new light. And you wish that you had pointed them out a little more often along the way.
Suicide.
She chose to walk alone, though others wondered why. Refused to look before her, kept eyes cast upwards, towards the sky. She didn't have companions, no need for earthly things, only wanted freedom from what she felt were puppet strings.
Addiction.
I don't get it, Ma. What's the big deal? Ginger, we know you see the Moco Loco Frothinator as being the solution, but it's actually the problem, Ginger. The problem. The Moco Loco Frothinator is controlling you, Ginger.
Tampering with anything that alters your body or mind is a strict no-no. You should know that, Ginge.
And romance.
What are you doing up here? Why did you come to see me?
Why? Why? Because I think I might be madly in love with you. That's why.
What?
But there's only one way to know for sure.
It also has one of the best endings in Nickelodeon history that gave such a satisfying conclusion. However, what happened in between? That's what I want to see if As Told by Ginger were ever adapted into the comics. The drawing should be slightly redone to make it less, well, ugly. As much as I'm a huge fan of As Told by Ginger, even I can admit that the animation is really off. Definitely the worst in Nickelodeon's Klasky Csupo lineup. The story should take place right after Dr. Dave and Lois's wedding and concluded when Ginger is an adult, which was featured in the series finale, The Wedding Frame.
This is another show that I really enjoyed growing up, and it was a cool teenager, preteen television show about a normal girl just trying to go through life. And something I would really like to see with As Told by Ginger is maybe an older version of the main character. It'd be really cool to see kind of a stylized book for this. A perfect person I think should write this is Brendan Fletcher, who does the Batgirl comic right now for DC Comics, and it's a very hip, stylish book, and I would really like to see that for As Told by Ginger, a modernized version of this cartoon that I think teenagers and maybe even people that are in college who watched the show when they were kids can really relate to. So that's why I would like to see a hipper version of As Told by Ginger.
Coming in at number 8 is our last Klasky Csupo Nicktoon to be discussed on this list. The one that kickstarted the original Nicktoons lineup, the one and only Rugrats. The show is about the adventures and perspectives of a group of babies named Tommy, Chucky, Phil, and Lil. As simple as the show sounds, it was smartly written with memorable characters that made you both laugh and cry. It was a show that was loved by both kids and adults, and has had a huge staying power even to this very day, being one of the most reran shows on the 90s or all that. However, it's not perfect. Rugrats for a time was the equivalent of SpongeBob SquarePants. It lasted for over a decade with numerous spin-offs, movies, toys, and more. Plus, the character additions like Dill and Kimmy were mostly unnecessary. Now, I've heard numerous arguments about how Kimmy was being very supportive for Chucky, and how Chucky was able to gain a family ever since Rugrats in Paris. However, Tommy has been very supportive for Chucky and showcasing of how brave he could be, which makes Kimmy a bit on the redundant side. Right before I continue, I have to confess something. I did a discussion about the rumored Rugrats revival 2 years ago, saying that I didn't want to see one. For those who don't remember, here's a clip of it. Kids wouldn't give two shits about Rugrats. The thing of it is that Rugrats was a cartoon that came out in the 90s. And from what we've experienced with revivals based on classic shows, most of them don't work. They're relying on the nostalgic of, people growing up in the 90s to make people try to go back, and that is not right. The kids who are growing up today wouldn't even know about Rugrats. And, trying to introduce something like that would not connect with them. If they are going to revive Rugrats, they have to do something different. They have to be able to have something new and something fresh that people can be able to connect with. Something that'll be new for the kids, but something familiar to people who grew up with it. And, for a lot of people who are claiming to say that, I'm going to watch the revival of Rugrats by the time it's going to come out. Yes, you are. But are you going to stick around to it? Most likely you will not. Kevin actually brought this interesting conversation when he discussed about it. When people were excited about the revival of Beavis and Butthead, they watched a few of the episodes, but they didn't come back to watching the rest. The reason why was because Beavis and Butthead was perfect for the 90s. It was basically satirical of everything that was going on at the time. And, when it came out, it was 2011. People were on to different things, and that was one of the main reasons why Beavis and Butthead was canceled. The same thing is going to happen to Rugrats. We'll all watch a couple of the Rugrats revival new episodes. We're gonna be all thinking about our childhoods back in 1991. And then, as time goes on, we're not gonna watch the rest of it because, come on. If you were a kid in 1991, you're probably in either your mid to late 20s or even early 30s. You're not gonna care about watching Rugrats unless you're gonna be watching it with your kids. But unless, Arlene Klasky, Gabor Chupo, and maybe a good amount of the writers can be able to do something different to Rugrats, kids are not going to care less about it. Since then, I regret on what I originally said. I apologize on saying the statement that people wouldn't want to watch a revival of Rugrats if it came out. I was very stupid and naive when saying that. The reason why I said that was because around 2011 and 2012, Nickelodeon was starting to pick itself up. In 2011, 90s are all that started kicking in, as well as Rango and Tintin debuting in theaters and being really great Nickelodeon movies that won the Oscar and the Golden Globe. Around 2012, The Legend of Korra and TMNT came out, and it became hugely successful. I just felt that a Rugrats revival would have taken a huge step backwards for Nickelodeon, since they were doing really good with creating some new shows and some new movies that were actually of decent quality. But unfortunately, that didn't last very long.
Alone when I thought to myself, why don't I fart in a jar and put it on a shelf?
Took the top of the jar and put it up to my butt and forced a stinky toot right out of my gut.
Now, back to the main topic. I think there's some new ideas that the writers can do with having a bunch of babies having adventures. A lot has happened in the 25 years since Rugrats had aired, and I think there's a lot of potential that can be done to update Rugrats. But whoever writes the new comic series, they really need to think outside the box if they want to bring Rugrats back. The first thing is, you have to go back to basics. Have the original Rugrats gang featured, and omit Dill and Kimmy. But if you want Dill and Kimmy, then give them a proper introduction that doesn't jump the shark. Or make them a little bit more useful. Give them personalities that make them stand out. It should be written like it was in the original 3 seasons. Those 3 seasons were the best when it came to featuring a blend of adventure, surreal imagery, pop culture humor, and, of course, fun.
Now, this is one of my favorite shows from Nickelodeon that I still watch probably at least once a week. Whenever it's on Teen Nick, I always end up watching Rugrats. I never get tired of the show, and it's just a lot of fun. Now, what I would like to see with Rugrats is still the same stories of babies trying to have imagination and the parents not knowing anything, of course. But the parents having their own drama. That's something, as I grew up with Rugrats, I tend to understand. Of course, you relate to the babies when you're a kid, but then you understand the parents' point of view and their story. So hopefully they can still keep that balance. And the person that, or the two creators I would really like to see do Rugrats is hopefully I pronounced his last name right, Balajazar and Franco, and they are great creators that could do kid comics but also make it entertaining for adults, and they've worked on Tiny Titans in the past, and that's just a great book that references stuff about the Titans but it's also really kid friendly, and that's something I would really like to see with Rugrats, having those references for adults that the show had and also making it very kid friendly.
Coming in at number 7 is another 2000s Nicktoon that is pretty decent, while not my personal favorite. The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. Despite the show having outdated animation, cheesy humor, a huge suspension of disbelief when it comes to the representation of science, and having the worst spin-off series in Nickelodeon history, The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron is a decent Nicktoon. It has decent characters, diverse villains, and pretty hilarious moments that people still remember to this day. Many people even consider The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius to be the best CGI Nicktoon that Nickelodeon has ever aired. While I think that this Nicktoon is a bit overrated and is not as great as everyone makes it out to be, I cannot deny that I find myself chuckling on numerous occasions. The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius focuses on Jimmy Neutron, who is a boy genius, creating numerous inventions, hanging out with his friends Carl and Sheen, fighting off notorious villains such as Professor Calamitous, Beautiful Gorgeous, the Junkman, the Yokians, and so much more. And just living off his everyday life as a kid. If Jimmy Neutron were to be adapted into the comics, it doesn't have to stick with the original storyline that was featured in the show or in the movie. Let's have some issues that has a mixture between Jimmy and his friends in school, Jimmy fighting against the villains that I previously mentioned, and having funny moments with the adults. Don't focus too much on Jimmy making a failed experiment and fixing it at the end of every issue, otherwise it'll become as redundant as season 1 of the show. Also, it would be really, really awesome if they just retconned Planet Sheen, pretend that it didn't exist.
Jimmy Neutron was a really fun show on Nickelodeon, and I think it's one of those rare shows where the show was actually better than the movie. I did watch the movie when it was in theaters as a kid, and I watched the show also, and the show developed these characters so much more, and the animation was great also. And if we're going to have a Jimmy Neutron book, it has to be a comedy book. That's what the show was. You do get to see the relationships blossom, like Cindy and Jimmy's relationship, and you get to see these characters develop, but mostly it's a comedy book about a kid genius. And I do think they should keep him as a kid. I wouldn't want to see him as a teenager. And the person I think would really work well with this comic is Jimmy Palmiotti. He does a lot of comedy books. Right now he's working on Big Con from Boom Studios, which is a miniseries, and also Harley Quinn. So it'd be cool to see his comedic dynamic for Jimmy Neutron.
Coming in at number 6 is, in my opinion, the most underrated Nicktoon of the 90s. Before there were Angry Birds, there were the Angry Beavers. The Angry Beavers is about 2 beaver brothers named Norbert and Daggett, living off their normal lives as they move into their own dam after leaving their parents' house. The show was very well known for its fourth wall breaking humor, homages to classic B-horror movies, and Norbert and Daggett having a fantastic chemistry together. The ending that was never released is a prime example of their brilliance, shattering the fourth wall with a hammer by acknowledging that they're a cartoon being cancelled.
Modifier brother,
Why?
we're going bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Why?
Because we are over.
Over? Over what?
Over. As in done, through, finished, ended, terminated, defunct, extinct, extinguished, down for the count, out of bedness, signing off, saying sayonara, finito, completo, adios, sending this dog to Montana, going bye-bye.
Get away with your evil magic!
It's not evil magic.
Whatever you say. Just wait here while I gather an angry mob to burn you at the stake. What the?
Starting to get the picture?
No.
We're pictures. We're not even three-dimensional.
Wowzers.
Hate to break it to you.
Hey!
You're actually not even one-dimensional.
The Angry Beavers is one of those Nicktoons that a lot of people have heard of, but not a lot of people have watched. It was hugely overshadowed by the Ren and Stimpy Show, Rocko's Modern Life, and SpongeBob SquarePants. It's a true shame, really. The Angry Beavers would be absolutely perfect to be adapted into comics. The amount of pop culture references and fourth wall jokes would practically write themselves. It would be crazy not to bring them back.
This is another book that I could see just having a very fun one-shot issue every time. I think some of the Nickelodeon shows could definitely have story arcs, but Angry Beavers just have a fun little story every month with their comic. I did not pick a writer or artist for this book. I don't know who would be able to write Angry Beavers, but it would have to be somebody who could do comedy. Maybe someone who's done the Cartoon Network's book in the past, like Powerpuff Girls, Ben 10. Keep it in that vein, and also those books are from IDW. Keep it in that vein, and I think Angry Beavers could be a fun book that, again, kids and people who grew up with the show can really enjoy.
I understand, Kamaguno. It's very hard to decipher on who would be the perfect person to write in those crazy fourth wall jokes and homages to B-horror movies. You know who would be awesome to bring back? Mitch Schauer, the original creator of the Angry Beavers, would be perfect to bring back writing the Angry Beavers comic book. Or maybe we can have Micah Wright, who was a writer for the Angry Beavers, and even a graphic novel artist himself. Maybe they could even bring back Constant Pain. That would be 2 shows for the price of 1. That would be freaking awesome. Coming in at number 5 is my personal favorite Nicktoon that ever aired in the 90s. Hey Arnold. Hey Arnold is one of the greatest animated shows of all time. It has wonderful animation, diverse, memorable characters, and possibly was the most well-written slice-of-life cartoon that ever came out in the 90s. Now, no disrespect for amazing, complex shows such as Recess, but Hey Arnold never talked down to its audience, especially when it focuses on Helga Pataki and her dysfunctional family. Similar to Rugrats, Hey Arnold is one of the most reoccurring shows that featured on the 90s Or All That. It has a gigantic fan base wanting the show to come back. And of course, I can't talk about Hey Arnold without talking about the Patakis, the canceled spin-off series that would have taken place 5 years after Hey Arnold ended its run. It would have focused on a teenage Helga Pataki and her family. Not to mention, there's the Jungle Movie, the second Hey Arnold movie that was supposed to conclude the series, in which it focuses on Arnold going to San Lorenzo with his classmates, searching for his missing parents. It was built up on episodes such as Parents' Day and The Journal. Unfortunately, it was never released because Nickelodeon decided to release the Hey Arnold movie, which was originally supposed to be a TV movie, so they can be able to make huge amounts of money, just like the first 2 Rugrats movies, making over $100 million. Long story short, the movie was underwhelming, mediocre, and disappointing, and it became a huge flop at the box office. But there seems to be a shimmer of hope now that Craig Bartlett is working on Nickelodeon again, creating a new Nicktoon called Skyrat. I think it'll be a perfect opportunity for Hey Arnold to be adapted into the comics. Nickelodeon can even adapt the Patakis and the Jungle Movie into graphic novels if worse comes to worse. It'll finally put a closure that we've been waiting for over a decade.
Now this is my all-time favorite Nickelodeon show, and probably favorite kid show. I think it's so smart. Just going into Helga's psyche is really interesting, and having a supporting cast that's it's just so present, and you can really tell who every character is. I think is rare for any TV show, especially a kid show. And I think, especially Helga, you get to see a lot of her personality and just know her character very well and her motives. But you always have Arnold trying to help out his friends, and then you get to learn about PS 118 and learn about the teachers, learn about the area Arnold lives in. You very much know the setting of the show. So if they were going to continue Hey Arnold, I would be okay with him either being a little older, like 5th grade, or just keeping the same age and having, of course, the regular creator, Craig Bartlett. I think he's the best one to work on it, and hopefully he would be willing to work on it. I don't think he's done any comic books in the past, but we all know he has a passion for Hey Arnold, and we know that he wanted to make spin-offs of Hey Arnold also, so maybe he'll have opportunity to flesh out the stories he wanted to tell.
Coming in at number 4 is the best Nicktoon that has aired in recent years, The Legend of Korra. The Legend of Korra is the sequel series to Avatar: The Last Airbender. It takes place 70 years later, focusing on a new avatar named Korra and showcasing new characters such as Mako, Bolin, Asami, Tenzin, and so much more, and new settings that pushes animated shows to its limits. Now, whether it's superior to Avatar The Last Airbender, that's really hard to say. While there are some things that Korra did do that wasn't as good as Avatar The Last Airbender, such as the pacing, some of the characters, and the perfect balance of humor and action, Korra was more darker, serious, very consistent with the previous show and the comics, and it took a huge risk by introducing the very first bisexual couple in Nickelodeon. Even if you've never seen Avatar The Last Airbender, The Legend of Korra is an amazing show that was given a high amount of quality compared to the mediocre schmuck that Nickelodeon is presenting nowadays, such as Sanjay and Craig and Breadwinners.
Go party pants, 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 go.
Despite the creators wanting to take a break from the series, I really want to have a continuation of Korra's story taking place after the end of Book 4. Now, for any of you fans of Korra, I bet you were thinking that this entry should be a lot higher. The Legend of Korra has the closest chance for a comic series to come out because Avatar The Last Airbender has been doing very successful with their comic book series. It would be absolutely stupid for Nickelodeon to not adapt Legend of Korra into a comic book series.
As you guys know from Dark Horse, there is an Avatar graphic novel, and there's a couple of graphic novels. And they also sell merchandise of Legend of Korra. So now that Legend of Korra has ended, and there was a big cliffhanger for the show, I would really like to see them explore this cliffhanger of Korra Asami, where the other characters went in the comic book. I think they could definitely do so, and either if they want to do a graphic novel form, or they could do a single issue form. Of course, I would like to see the creators of Avatar and Legend of Korra to do so. They also write the Avatar Last Airbender comic book, so it makes a lot of sense. And I have a feeling we will see a Legend of Korra book soon, hopefully soon. I think it's definitely possible. There's just so much more story to tell with Korra.
Coming at number 3 is what I consider to be Butch Hartman's magnum opus, Danny Phantom. Danny Phantom is one of the most well-regarded Nicktoons around the 2000s. The show is about... well, actually the intro can say it better than I can, so enjoy.
Danny Phantom, he was just 14 when his parents built a very strange machine. It was designed to view a world unseen. He's gonna catch them all 'cause he's Danny Phantom. When it didn't quite work, his folks, they just quit. But then Danny took a look inside of it. There was a great big flash, everything just changed. His molecules got all rearranged. When he first woke up, he realized he had snow white hair and glowing green eyes. He could walk through walls, disappear, and fly. He was much more unique than the other guy, and it was then that he knew what he had to do. He had to stop all the ghosts that were coming through. He's here to fight for me and you. He's gonna catch them all 'cause he's Danny Phantom. Gonna catch them all 'cause he's Danny Phantom. Gonna catch them all 'cause he's Danny Phantom.
Yeah, pretty awesome, isn't it? The show takes full advantage of this concept, featuring memorable characters, wonderful animation, and a nice blend of comedy and action. Yes, the show isn't perfect, especially in their last season, but blame Nickelodeon on this because they told Butch Hartman that they were going to cancel Danny Phantom despite the fact that he wanted to dedicate another season to build everything up. However, the show is still very well done and it has a satisfying conclusion, albeit rushed. If Danny Phantom were to be adapted into the comics, it should continue the story where it left off, with Danny being the hero of Amity Park. There should be new villains as well as the old ones that were featured. It should build up the relationship between him and Sam. And who knows? With the 2 new Ghostbusters movies coming out, the one with the female cast and the rumored one featuring Chris Pratt and Channing Tatum, there's no better time than to bring Danny Phantom back.
Danny Phantom is another really fun show from Nickelodeon that I loved growing up, especially the superpower aspect, which obviously fits very well with comics. And there's a lot of cool mythology kind of to the book, learning a bit about the ghost world, what it means to be a ghost, you know, Danny getting some cool powers, and by the end the city finds out that Danny Phantom is a ghost. So it'd be really cool to see kind of a Ben 10 aspect after everyone finds out that you're Danny Phantom, even though your name was Danny Fenton. The parents finding out who were ghost hunters. There's a lot of story to tell there, and the person I would really like to see work on this book is Greg Weisman. He's really great at these type of stories with superpowers, teens, of course with Young Justice, Spectacular Spider-Man, I think he could work perfectly with Danny Phantom. Even though he did not create the show, I would really like to see his perspective on this show. So hopefully one day we'll get to see a Danny Phantom book, because there's just a lot of stories to tell with that character.
Coming in at number 2 is another criminally underrated Nicktoon. It's none other than My Life as a Teenage Robot. The show is about a robot named XJ9, or Jenny, who was created by a woman scientist named Dr. Wakeman to stop crime such as preventing aliens or robots from annihilating the world. However, Jenny is programmed to have the mind and personality as a teenager and wishes to have friends, go to school, and live a normal life. She makes friends, such as her neighbors Brad and Tucker, and a nerdy boy named Sheldon who has an obsession with robots. The show did a great job mixing action, humor, and sentimental moments. Unfortunately, it was heavily overshadowed by other popular Nicktoons at the time, such as Danny Phantom, which came out less than a year later. Although it ended on a great note with Jenny finally defeating Vexus and the Cluster Prime, I feel that the story can still continue with new villains and new adventures. We need more female superheroes represented in the comic universe. Thanks to the critical acclaim with female superheroes nowadays, such as Wonder Woman, Black Widow, Gamora, Batgirl, Mayday, Spider-Gwen, Miss Marvel, and so much more, it's starting to build a huge cult fan base. It's never a better time than to bring back My Life as a Teenage Robot. There's a lot that they can work with.
This is actually a short-lived show that lasted a good amount of seasons, but I feel like it's a show that could have lasted even more, but a lot of people just didn't know about it, and that's a shame, because I think this was a really fun cartoon with a female robot, a robot who wants to just be a teenager, but she has to be a superhero at the same time. Supporting cast is really good. Her friends are great in this book. You get to see the also not the angsty teens, but the bad girls, the bullies of the book were really funny and a lot of fun.
We're here. The day can start.
I must say, Britt, you looking pretty fat. You're a fire, straight up, girl.
And you're sounding quite the bomb yourself. You know, there's nothing more important than staying current with the times in fashion, action, and diction.
Later, Jen. See you later, alligator.
Alligator? Did she really say, see you later, alligator?
Sure did. You sound like my grandmama, if she was a loser.
So what I would really like to see with My Life as a Teenage Robot is just continue that. Continue the story of a regular girl, or a robot girl who wants to be a regular girl. And the person I would really like to see work on this is Gail Simone. She is one of the most known female writers of the industry, and I really would like to see how she tackles this story. She's worked on titles like Batgirl, Birds of Prey, and now currently she's working on Red Sonja, and I think she just ended her run on Tomb Raider. She goes into a lot of franchises, and it would be cool if she went into this franchise also. I would love to see her voice with My Life as a Teenage Robot.
And finally, number 1, it's a Nicktoon that has been long overdue to come back. Unlike the others that we mentioned, this was one that never got a chance to start, but its potential is so great that it deserves to be revived. You've heard me talk about it numerous times, and I still haven't lost hope in it coming back in some way, shape, or form. Ladies and gentlemen, the Modifiers. I've already talked about this rejected 2007 Nicktoons pilot numerous times, such as episode 11 of Nick Smithsel, and on my top 5 failed Nickelodeon pilots. But if you don't remember, here's the premise. It's about a young girl named Agent Zero who is part of an organization called the Modifiers, where their main goal is to take down an evil villain named Baron Vane. She disguises herself as one of Baron Vane's henchmen to steal back an artifact called the All-Seeing Eye. However, one of the henchmen finds out Agent Zero's identity and retrieves the artifact back. He rushes back to Vane's lair and tries to reveal to him her secret. This is an amazing idea. There were so many possibilities that they could have ran with. The premise was intriguing, the characters were diverse and likable. The humor was a bit on the dry side, but it was very witty and had a bit of an homage to classic slapstick. And the animation, oh my god, the animation is gorgeous! Definitely the main highlight of the pilot. So interesting, so colorful, so diverse. It is something you have to see to believe. Unfortunately, Nickelodeon rejected it because apparently it had a female protagonist. Oh, Nickelodeon, you can be so hypocritical sometimes. Considering that you were airing iCarly around the same time, not to mention that you aired The Mighty Bee around a year later, we didn't pick up The Modifiers because it had a female protagonist. Yeah, I'm gonna call BS on that. Similar to My Life as a Teenage Robot, we need more female superheroes represented in comic books. And what better way than to bring new life into this amazing pilot such as this? If Adventure Time, which was a rejected Nicktoons pilot, can spring life into another source and have a huge dedicated fan base, then why not start anew with the Modifiers? Trust me, the fans will love you for it. Personally, for me, Chris Riccardi and Lynn Naylor should come back to doing this. Since the Modifiers was their own original creation, I think they deserve to come back and present the ideas that they wanted to and showcase on what we had been wanting for a long time. That concludes our top 10 Nicktoons that need comic book adaptations. If you liked it, please give this video a like and subscribe. Also check out Comic Uno's channel. She does comic book reviews, TV reviews, movie reviews, and live stream podcasts. She's really talented who deserves a lot more subscribers. After you're done with that, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and check out our associated websites. Also let us know in the comments below on what Nicktoons you want adapted into comic books. That's all for now, so hope to see you around soon. Thanks for watching.
Now, walking the mall like what up, I got a big box. Gotta fill it up with some books from the comic shop. X-Men with Iceman, they're so damn frosty.
Damn, Bobby Drake is a cold-ass honky.
Rolling in hella deep, looking for some DC. Rocking Bronze Age, keep my arrow and my lantern green. Draped in a robin cape, Cobra cut out next to me. Probably should've washed this, smells like King Cobra sheets. But damn, it was 99 cents. Copping up, reading, about to go and get some hero clicks. Passing up an Archie comic for the latest Walking Dead. Paul Dini, Alan Moore, Peter David, George Perez. Going in my bag, I'm a happy, it's a bargain, kids. I'ma take a Stanley style, No, for real, ask Stan, can I have his comic style? X-Men, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Fantastic Four. Mad Mutant Powers, make a crazy movie cameos. They had an Age of Ultron, I bought an Age of Ultron. I bought a Captain Marvel, then I bought the Atom. Hello, my Ant-Man, my Mellow. Hellboy ain't got nothing on my Daredevil, hell no. I could get some Snake Eyes, Copperhead from G.I. Joe. Cobra Heads would be like,
oh, he got the Destro.
I'm gonna pop some tags, only got 20 titles on my pull list. I'm going shopping, looking for a comic, this is fracking awesome. I'm gonna pop some bags, only got 20 titles on my pull list. I'm going shopping, looking for a comic, this is fracking awesome.
What you know about wearing a callop on your noggin? What you know about Joker beating up on Robin? I'm reading, I'm searching up that Gotham. One man's Nightwing as another man's...